In a time long past, there was a land of incredible wonder. This was ancient Egypt, a place of golden sands, towering pyramids that touched the sky, and the great river Nile, which gave life to the entire kingdom. It was a civilization of great power and knowledge, a hub of art and architecture that we still marvel at today. The air was filled with the scent of lotus flowers and the sounds of a bustling society. People built grand temples to honor their many gods, and their stories were carved into stone, meant to last for eternity. This was a world that seemed unshakable, a kingdom built to stand forever against the sands of time. But beneath this glittering surface, a deep shadow had fallen. This kingdom was ruled by a man who called himself a god. His name was Pharaoh. He lived in a palace of unimaginable luxury, surrounded by servants and treasures. He believed he held the power of life and death in his hands, and that his will was the only law that mattered. Pharaoh was a man whose heart was filled with pride. He saw himself as the master of all he surveyed, and he demanded that everyone bow down to him, not just as a king, but as a divine being. Pharaoh's fear was a poison that spread throughout the land. He had a terrible dream. His fortune tellers said it meant a boy from the children of Israel would one day destroy the kingdom. This prophecy terrified him. Instead of changing his ways, his heart grew even harder. He issued a horrific command, a decree born of paranoia and hate. He ordered that every baby boy born to the children of Israel be killed, a brutal attempt to stop the prophecy before it could come true. Imagine the terror gripping every family, the silent tears in the darkness of night. This was the world Moses was born into. His mother, a woman of immense faith, was filled with fear for her newborn son. How could she protect him from Pharaoh's soldiers? She prayed to God for guidance. And inspiration came, a plan that required incredible trust. She placed her baby in a basket and set him adrift on the waters of the river Nile. It must have felt like an impossible choice, letting go and trusting the river, but her faith was stronger than her fear. She believed God was watching over him. The basket floated gently down the river, guided by an unseen hand. The basket eventually floated toward Pharaoh's palace. Of all places, it arrived at the one of greatest danger, yet also of ultimate safety. It was discovered, not by a soldier, but by Pharaoh's own wife. She saw the baby and her heart filled with love. She convinced Pharaoh to adopt the child, to raise him as their own son. Pharaoh, unaware it was the child he sought to destroy, agreed. Moses grew up in the very household of the man who wanted him dead. He was raised in luxury, educated in royal ways, yet he was always different. God protected him, preparing him for the journey ahead, a journey that would begin with one powerful question: why must my people suffer? As Moses grew into a man, he could not ignore the injustice he saw all around him. Filled with righteous anger, Moses intervened to defend the helpless man and accidentally struck the soldier, killing him. Fearing for his life, Moses fled Egypt. He journeyed to Midian and found refuge. For years he lived a simple life as a shepherd. One night, while tending his flock, Moses saw something extraordinary. On the side of Mount Tur, he saw a fire burning in a bush. But this was no ordinary fire. The bush blazed with light, yet its leaves were not turning to ash. Drawn by the sight, Moses walked closer. He felt a powerful presence, a holiness that made him stop. He was standing on sacred ground, about to have an encounter that would change history. As he stood in awe, a voice called from the burning bush. It was a voice of pure majesty, not of this world. "O Moses," the voice said, "verily, I am your Lord. So take off your shoes, indeed you are in the sacred valley of Tua." It was God, creator of the heavens and earth, speaking to him. In that moment, Moses was chosen. He was no longer just a shepherd. He must go to the most powerful and arrogant man on earth. He would not be alone. God gave him two powerful signs, two miracles to prove he was a messenger. This was the beginning of his prophetic journey. A humble shepherd, now armed with God's power, was about to return to his homeland to confront a tyrant. With his brother Aaron by his side as a helper, Moses returned to the grand palace of Egypt. He stood before the mighty Pharaoh, soldiers, advisors, immense wealth. Moses was no longer the frightened fugitive who had fled years ago. He was now a messenger of God, filled with a quiet strength that came from his faith. He delivered the divine message with courage and clarity. He told Pharaoh that he was a messenger from the Lord of all worlds, and commanded him to release the children of Israel from their bondage. Pharaoh listened with arrogance and mockery. How could a former runaway, a simple man from the desert, dare to challenge him? He sneered, "And who is the Lord of the worlds?" Moses threw down his wooden staff. In an instant, it transformed. The simple shepherd's staff began to writhe and hiss. The serpent it became was no illusion. The people in the court gasped in shock and fear. Pharaoh himself remained unconvinced. He boasted that his own kingdom had magicians who could perform similar tricks. They threw their ropes, they threw their staffs, and through their illusions they made them appear as small snakes wriggling on the ground. The crowd was amazed, but then Moses cast his staff. The serpent it became was no illusion. It swiftly slithered forward and swallowed up every single one of the magician's fake snakes. The illusion was shattered by reality. The magicians, recognizing a power beyond their own, fell to the ground in prostration,
declaring, "We believe in the Lord of Moses and Aaron."
Pharaoh's heart, however, remained sealed with pride. The first of these signs was a drought that gripped the land. Their water sources, including the mighty river Nile, turned into blood, undrinkable and foul, followed by a series of plagues that descended upon the Egyptians. They could find no clean water, while the children of Israel remained unaffected. Yet after each plague, when Moses would pray and the affliction was lifted, Pharaoh would go back on his word. His relief would quickly turn back into arrogance, believing he had weathered the storm on his own. Swarms of locusts descended from the sky, devouring every crop and green leaf in their path. After the final devastating plague, a broken Pharaoh finally gave in. In the dead of night he commanded Moses to take his people and leave Egypt immediately. The children of Israel, after centuries of slavery, gathered their belongings and began their great exodus. Their journey to freedom had finally begun, but as soon as the children of Israel had left, Pharaoh's regret turned to anger. He gathered his massive army, his fastest chariots. As the children of Israel reached the shores of the Red Sea, they looked back and saw a cloud of dust on the horizon. They were trapped. Panic and despair swept through the people. It was the ultimate test of faith. His own faith did not waver. "Strike the sea with your staff." Moses raised his staff and struck the water. In a breathtaking display of divine power, the sea began to part. The children of Israel walked through the sea on dry land. But as soon as the last soldier entered, God commanded the sea to return. The walls of water collapsed, drowning Pharaoh and his entire army. The tyranny was over, forever. The story of Moses and Pharaoh is more than just an ancient tale. It is a powerful message that has echoed through the ages, inspiring people of all faiths and backgrounds. It lives in the hearts of millions today because it speaks to a universal truth. Faith can overcome fear. Justice will ultimately prevail over tyranny. We can be like Pharaoh, blinded by pride and arrogance, or we can be like Moses, answering the call to stand up for what is right, have the courage to speak out against injustice, in our communities, in the wider world. One person with faith in a just cause can spark real change. The miracles, the serpent staff, the miracles, the parting of the sea, these are not mere spectacles, they are profound symbols of hope. Even when we feel trapped, with a sea of problems ahead, there is always a way forward. No matter how dark the night, the dawn of justice is always on its way.